Whenever I left Christianity and fundamentalist churches, I realized that fundamentalist churches teach parents to shut down critical thinking of kids and teenagers. Even adults experience this. We call them thought termination cliches, buzzwords. Answering a question with a question. Avoidant questioning. And what's so bad about not wanting kids to have critical thinking? Everything. I mean, if the average American had critical thinking, we wouldn't have Donald Trump as president. If people in the world, especially America, had consistent critical thinking, we wouldn't have most of the problems, cults, religions, and just general stupidity that we have, because critical thinking is something that everyone should possess or should be striving and pursuing. When you're used to growing up in an environment that Christianity and Christian beliefs and creationism is a big filter for all kinds of worldview, instead of having that, you have what we call a biblical worldview. You are minimizing your critical thinking. I never questioned Christianity. I might have had some questions, but it was never, I'm not sure if this is real. It was more, I don't know the answer. Can you help me? I never thought that Christianity wasn't real until I was just shy of 31 years of age. It's shocking the level of cognitive dissonance that religious parents heap and drill into their kids' heads. It is astounding. I mean, I've sat in classes remotely with cult deprogrammers, people who have escaped religions, high control religions at that. And they would talk how one of the best ways to control a cult, a member, is by limiting information, limiting fact-checking, accountability, and intimidating people where they don't ask questions. If questioning authority, questioning ideology and doctrine is not encouraged, welcomed, and praised, you are in an extremely dangerous place. It may not be physically or spiritually abusive, but it's very borderline manipulative. I mean, I have seen things in churches and in therapy class, people talking about how women are tricked to stay in abusive situations by being taught never to question male authority, whether divine or human. If you can't question authority, challenge authority in a polite way, I mean, that is terrifying. In my home, I wasn't allowed. I wasn't even encouraged or celebrated when I challenged all authority. And now kids and teenagers may not challenge authority in the best way possible. Okay? Rebellion is a part of growing up. It's a part of developing your own critical thinking, likes, dislikes, all of that. But it's not encouraged in high control religions. It's just not encouraged. Now, if you're in more of the liberal, progressive churches, they're going to have, well, hopefully, they're going to have fewer traditional roles. They're not going to, as likely, gaslight you. Even though I'm sure it still happens, because, come on, we're all human. And if there's naivety and power imbalances, somewhere there's going to be a misuse of power. people, specifically non-male gendered people, are not equal. They're not told to challenge male authority or be the authority. You have got yourself into a situation where I am shocked if some kind of misconduct does not happen, because you have all the ingredients for Chernobyl and something just doesn't happen. It's so sad how women limit their voice. And just like the gay community, silence equals death. If you don't protest, you don't challenge, you don't hold the line, then power will never be checked, or not consistently checked. And it's terrifying that women live in a never challenge male authority environment. Critical thinking keeps me out of joining MAGA. Critical thinking has told me for years that religion is a terrible, terrible thing. I mean, it can be used for good occasionally, but nothing good religion has ever done or ever will do will make up for the abuse, the child endangerment, exploitation, just downright assault. It's just not good enough. If one person is harmed when the church could have prevented it, nothing good they ever do will make up for what they allowed to happen. Which, in some circumstances, they probably joke about covering up abuse, which is terrible. If people, regardless of age, are not desired to have critical thinking, think for themselves outside of the parameter of doctrine that they've been indoctrinated with, you're basically a sheep. You are going to probably resemble somebody who regurgitates the crap that people plunge into you. And I regurgitated all the garbage I was taught. And it's not a surprise that I had almost no critical thinking. Any critical thinking that I did, luckily, was allowable in the religion that I was in. But if critical thinking brings you to a conclusion that does not agree with the Bible, 9 out of 10 times the person will reject all scientific evidence, proof, whatever, and believe whatever the Bible says, even though most of that garbage has been debunked. They will still believe that hitting your children is acceptable because the Bible says so. They won't probably believe the scientific research done that shows that hitting kids is extremely dangerous, unkind, and unloving. And development can be severely impacted by hitting your kids. But they will still do it because the Bible says to do it. That's not critical thinking. That's just being part of the problem. I think there is critical thinking in religion as long as it does not defy or go against their book. If it does, they won't believe the facts. And yeah, Christians don't always take the Bible seriously. There's a lot of things in the Bible that we just no longer do anymore. And yet, we will beat people up mentally and psychologically for doing one thing that we decide to take seriously, like adultery, homosexuality, transgenderism. But yet, when we look at what we can and can't eat according to the Bible, we don't keep that. And it's like, I kind of get the idea that they don't follow those things because it's not as flashy. It's not as politically polarizing to tell people you're not supposed to eat shrimp or wear certain colors. It just doesn't look as good on a billboard compared to thou shalt not sleep with someone of your own gender. And without critical thinking, you will drink the Kool-Aid. And it's not a surprise when people drink the Kool-Aid and don't understand what they're losing. If you don't have critical thinking, you could wake up tomorrow and be in a cult or believe just anything. Imagine all these women in religion, Christianity especially, that believe that they're inferior because of their gender, that they shouldn't have authority. If you can't look at a situation and think, you know what, this just doesn't add up, and even if it doesn't add up with my Bible, I'm still going to believe science, which most Christians will do the exact opposite. They will beat a dead horse, metaphorically, if it lines up with their religious doctrine. And being Christian is not enough. You have to be a certain kind of Christian. And even that's not enough, especially if you have some divine word from God. My mom had one every 5 years. She would completely change denominations and then say, this denomination is the closest, and then 5 years later do the exact same thing. It's kind of funny now, but it was not funny back then. If you have little to no quality critical thinking, if you believe everything, you will stand up for nothing. And if most people had critical thinking, they probably wouldn't have gone to places like Ghana or Waco, Texas. Because I'm pretty sure that once you drink the Kool-Aid, there's almost no chance of going back. Critical thinking saves lives and saves people's families. How many families have been broken up because one person thinks they're God's mouthpiece? Critical thinking is, for me, if anyone says they have a word from a deity, I know they're crazy. They may not be clinically crazy, but they're saying crazy things. Anyone who says they have the secrets of the universe is a con artist. Anyone who thinks they know what happens after you die is a con artist. They're after your money or your daughters, depending on where and what you join. People have died, been killed, and been under control their entire lives because they can't or won't get into critical thinking. Any denomination, religion, belief system that says, oh, you don't need to think, turn off your brain, that's a red flag. I never do anything without my brain turned on. If critical thinking isn't happening, it could cost you everything. That's why churches don't want people, or even schools don't want the young people or anyone having access to factual education. When you realize that most of what Christians believe is utterly bullshit, because biology, the animal kingdom, facts, figures, and scientific research shows the exact opposite. I mean, if you take a basic class in anatomy, neurology, zoology, you're going to learn that homosexuality is completely normal, natural, and expected. 1 out of 5 people have different taste. And even among straight people, no straight person is created equal. Everyone has their own taste, fetishes, desires. And just because you identify as one thing doesn't mean a few days later you can wake up, learn something new, and put a new label on yourself. That recently happened to me. And when I'm ready, we'll make a video about that. The whole purpose of critical thinking is to not limit your capability, not to be under anyone's control, domination, or stress. Women live their whole lives, men too, believing that they're not good enough. If you just use basic critical thinking, you'll learn that most religions sound like someone smoked too much marijuana. It doesn't make sense. And if something doesn't make sense, find out why. It could be it's utter hooey. I was never taught evolution, sexual consent, autonomy, agency, sexism, homophobia. They wanted to control me and did a pretty good job for almost a third of a century. And it's funny how they say it's brainwashing to learn anything that doesn't line up with the Bible, but if you research what brainwashing in pop culture is, that's Christianity to a T. Indoctrination, systematic emotional priming, phishing, seduction, being a used car salesman, transactional, inducement into religion. That's basics of religion right there. I will never understand why women who make up the most people on the planet, group-wise, returns and stays in religion. Religion has nothing but contempt for women. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Any country that is the majority in that country or territory that are Bible-believing Christians or Muslims, they have a very low opinion of women legally. That's why the more atheistic a country is, the more agnostic, the more anti-religion, the more progressive, the more friendly, kind, and protective they are over women, gays, and all minorities. You don't need a God to be moral. You don't need a God to not be homophobic. They want you to believe you have to have a God to be moral so that you buy what they're selling. And not all Kool-Aid is poisonous. Some kills you slowly over your entire life, metaphorically speaking. And they want to take away your individuality, your critical thinking, and who you are by isolation. And if they can keep you from asking questions and questioning authority, there's a less likelihood that you will be deemed a threat and convert other people or make other people start thinking for themselves. They call it a cancer when people start thinking for themselves. If all the women woke up tomorrow and decided, you know what, I don't need a man to speak for me, don't need a man to lead me, protect me, I can do all that myself, our world would collapse. Because without women's invisible labor and groups of people thinking they're inferior when they're not, our society would not function. It would completely change, which I'm in favor of, actually. If I had the money, I'd move to a country that's 80% or higher in atheism. Places like Denmark, Sweden, Norway, etc. They are the most progressive. They're the most friendly to women. They love gay people. They see all races as equal. They may not be 100% perfect, and not everyone may be equal in all ways, because no country on the planet is everyone equal and protected. But compared to the United States, it's almost a paradise. Because when you don't need religion and you don't need a sexist God or male leadership, everyone benefits. That's why matriarchies are better than patriarchies. Women are consistently nicer, kinder, they build, they boost, they do everything men don't consistently do. But unfortunately, I can't afford to move to a 80% or higher atheistic country, so I have to live in one of the most sexist, xenophobic, homophobic, Bible-thumping, hypocritical countries on the planet. And every day I have to tell myself, why the hell am I still here? Because we elected a rapist for our president. I saw something I'm going to post on my YouTube channel where some American was going to Canada and they said something along the lines of, well, I'm in Canada and this is what I believe. And someone said, well, at least our president or the person in charge won't mistake minors as date material. It's so true. Canada runs circles around America, and we don't care, which is terrifying. But any group, any people, any family that tries to remove critical thinking and shame you for actually thinking critically is not a safe place to be. And conformity kills. Because when people stop dressing differently, having this different haircut, they start being and acting like everyone else, I start getting scared. They start putting on their Nike tennis shoes and drinking their Kool-Aid and waiting for the mothership. But at the end of the day, conformity and not using critical thinking might actually kill you. And you might waste your entire life in a religion that sees you as a cougher or a sheep.